Hello and welcome back to the WNBL Weekly Wrap. My name is Alex Catalano. I'm joined once again by Kristen Sims. Kristen, after having a week off from the WNBL, a couple of weeks before there was a week off of the NBL, a bit of a lack of hoops going on, but good to be back.
Yeah, we had a bit of a quiet period there for a little while, but I think we're back in full swing now, which is nice. Gives me something to keep me occupied.
Yeah, and some good games coming up this week as well. Like I said, the week off, it's been a little bit of time without WNBL action, but we'll take a quick look back at round three and some of the big talking points out of that before we get into round four, because there was still plenty of action going on in that group of games. Only the four games for the weekend. A couple teams didn't play. The Spirit, I believe, didn't get out on court in round three, but the first game of the weekend, Kristen, Townsville versus Southside. We've spoken a fair bit about Townsville on these videos so far. And once again, another win for them. They're still undefeated and probably looking like, if not the top best team in the comp, one of the very best at the moment.
We can't seem to get enough of the Fire at the moment. Really impressed with how they're going, and it's really looking like Steph Reed and Loz Nicholson are one of the hardest duos to handle in the competition for the opposition when they come up against the Fire.
Yeah, so we spoke last week a bit about Tiana Hawkins too, and how brilliant her stuff this season's been. I asked if she was the best import in the league this season, and I think she's certainly solidified that at the moment. She is in the top three in the league for points per game, alongside Nicholson, like you said. There's very little I can see stopping this team at the moment. Offensively, they are, I think, the best of anyone right now. Another 86 points in the game against the Flyers, who we spoke about last week as probably having one of the best defensive rotations of any team. To do that, I'm pretty bloody impressed with what they're showing at the moment.
Constant scoring shows that they are really cohesive with their offense. And as you know, as we keep saying, they've got three really good players there that are making some really good plays. But what I like more than anything for the Fire is that down the other end, they're just as intense. They're not backing down. And I think they had 11 steals for that game, um, which is just huge, like that just shows they're not sleeping on either end of the court. And I don't really know how opposition teams can top that, because if you're showing the same intensity at both ends of the court, you're going to be hard to stop. And I expect to see them sitting at the top of the ladder for probably the remainder of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I would not disagree with that. I cannot wait to look ahead to this week because there's a huge clash for them coming up. But yeah, both ends, they've been outstanding. On the boards too, Lauren Nicholson and Michaela Ruff both almost had a double-double in this game. So they're clearly putting in the effort with those offensive players. Four players scoring over 10 points. That's just such a multifaceted side that I don't know how you stop right now. On the other side of the coin, though, the Flyers probably be disappointed with that effort in that game, Kristen, but they had their big contributors once again. And of course, Lauren Jackson showing off what she can do. Her best game for the season by far, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we always knew that she was going to have a lot to give to the Flyers, and not just on the leadership side of things, but just being on the court. And that was definitely her best game. I think it was her highest score so far this season as well. So I think now that she's again sort of settled in and finding her place within that rotation, we'll probably see similar performances from her
Yeah,
as we go
it
forward.
it definitely raises the question to me of how far these top teams are above everybody else. There's a pretty big margin for the Fire over the Flyers, who we thought were well in that mix as one of the best in the comp. And you can say the same for Bendigo, who we'll talk about in a bit as well. But I think that they're just sort of breaking away a little bit as the top two. The Boomers obviously still out there. That game against the Flyers raised a few question marks, but I think it's sort of shaping up in that sort of way. It's going to be an interesting next few weeks with these top teams. Throwing it over the other end of the ladder, a team that did manage to get themselves up a little bit after this week, Kristen, with their first win in round three, the Adelaide Lightning getting over the top of the Flames. Pretty convincing victory. Lauren Mansfield, we spoke a bit about her last week, but she was instrumental in this win.
Oh, definitely. She just absolutely turned it up a notch, and probably carried that whole offense on her shoulders. 7 3-pointers at 100%. It was just a shooting masterclass, and she didn't care where she was shooting them from, and they were just going in. So when you're hot like that, why wouldn't you keep doing it?
Yeah.
And I think she only missed one shot for the entire game. So if they can keep that up, if she can keep that up, they're going to be very hard to stop scoring as well, because you just can't stop that.
Yeah, when you're hot, and that's not obviously going to happen every single week. You don't have a player only missing one shot in a game week to week. But on the other end of that, I thought their spread on the offensive end was a lot better in this game, led by Mansfield, of course, like we said. But Steph Talbot only scored 2 points in this game, which is nearly unheard of for the Lightning of the past couple seasons. Kirsten Bell was another one who she had 22 points. Izzy Borlase, another strong game for her, 11, and Marina Whittle was 12 off the bench too. I think when you see that mix in there, and we spoke about in the last episode how maybe it sort of hasn't dropped for them on the offensive end yet. This looks to me like the next step for them and how they're going to, find a bit more success and find a few more wins this season.
Yeah, I was really impressed with the offense, because as you said, Steph Talbot was potentially under a bit of an injury cloud there, and we were all a bit worried of what that was going to mean for the Lightning. And then yeah, we saw Kirsten Bell step up, and realistically, compared to the starting games of the season, even Izzy Borlase was quiet. So
Yeah.
for them to get the win like that, and such a big win, is I think really important for the confidence of the Lightning, and the ability that they have across such a wide range of players.
Yeah, it also gave them the chance to spread a few minutes across the court and get some players involved, which is always a good sign for a team that was maybe lacking a little bit of confidence and hadn't won a game yet. So I'm big on what they're doing here, the Lightning, and I think they put themselves in a very good position for this week. The Flames still winless though, Kristen, coming into this round, 0 from 3. Another fairly big loss for them, and it looked like, looking at the players on the floor, that the Lightning had a particularly big focus on shutting down Shyla Heal in this one.
Yeah, I think obviously the plan coming from the coaches was a really aggressive defense. They were double teaming, and it was really throwing that offense of the Flames out, which, I think is something they're probably going to have to look to improve on,
Yeah,
because, we know that Shyla is a really good player, and nobody's doubting that. But when she's pretty much the only go-to option, and you're trying to go long and you're missing, you have to mix it up. There was a patch, I think it was in the second quarter, where they did start feeding the ball to Keely Froling, and they got some nice, easy shots inside, and they started to claw back the lead that the Lightning had. But then they just went back to trying to shoot long, and it just wasn't working for them.
yeah. And I mean, you can see that with a player like Jocelyn Willoughby, especially, as a prime example of that. 14 attempts from the field, and she only managed to actually land one of them, which is, like we said with Mansfield, isn't going to happen every single week for her, but it's pretty indicative of the looks they were getting. They weren't getting any real high quality shots in for this game, and that's got to change, especially when you've got a starter who's playing 34 minutes on court and only landed a single shot, 6 turnovers as well for Willoughby. So not her best day on court, but no doubt she'll turn it around. I think we'll talk a bit about their upcoming game, but they've got the first chance this week to play on their home court, which I think will change things a little bit for them. If anything, just having a home crowd behind them will hopefully be a difference maker. At least they'll be hoping for it. But for now, it's still a little bit of a struggle for the Flames. But I think they'll get there, especially if this week it's got to be their first chance to really do it. And of course, they backed it up only a few days later with another loss to the Lynx, Kristen. It wasn't. Oh, sorry, that was the game beforehand. The Lightning's game afterwards. They got closer in that one though. And you speak about what they're sort of doing right. Keely Froling looks to be one of their better options at the moment. When they're getting caught outside, trying to shoot from deep, like I said with Willoughby, doesn't seem to be working, but at least they have a little bit of and aggressiveness and some good showing inside the paint.
Yeah, absolutely. Realistically, watching those two games, they did almost look like two different sides.
Yeah.
And, you know, like that's a big effort to back up, you know, being in Perth and then pretty much like a day later, I think it was, back on the court in Adelaide. So, you know, understandably, they were probably tired. But I think, you know, we were all quite excited about the Flames before the season. And I have faith that they'll be able to, you know, tighten things up and get back on track. But hopefully, you know, sleeping in their own beds and having a bit of a rest and coming out fresh on their home court in Sydney, we might see a different outfit again.
Yeah, and like I said, with a player like Willoughby, who's only hitting one shot in one game, she had 26 points in this one. So it's clear that she's not the kind of player that's going to have two bad games in a row. I don't think she'll be playing like that again this week. She had 25 shots in this one, so it's clear they want the ball in her hands, shooting. So she'll be a key one to watch this weekend when it comes to possibly getting their first win on the board. I think they're in a much better position, though, at the moment than the Caps. This is getting dire for the Canberra Capitals at the moment, Kristen. The big news out of the week was the release of Dakaya Cohen, who has mutually parted ways with the Caps to return back home. It's a huge, huge loss for them. Second in the league for rebounds, top 10 for points, sixth in the league for percentage from the field. I don't really know how they're going to replace what she brought to this team, especially with Jade Melbourne still out injured.
Yeah, I was quite shocked actually to see this news come out early in the week. And as you said, that leaves a big hole in an already struggling Caps outfit. I don't know without getting another import how they're really gonna fill that hole anytime soon. They were struggling. We all know they were struggling. And you know, hopefully they can get Jade back out on the court sometime soon. But I still think they need someone else there with a presence like Cohen had to back her up.
It's a hard presence to replace. Like I said, she's right up in the statistics on basically every single end of the game. So you can't just pick out a player out of nowhere and say, yep, you're going to be one of the league's best scorers, one of the league's best rebounders now. It's got to come within the squad, I think, for mine. And there's a couple of players who I think probably will be looked to step up this week. Ray Burrell and Shanice Swain have both shown signs, I think, this year, Kristen, of being able to score big, but they need to do that consistently for the next few weeks until they do find another scorer, I think, to really lift the Caps and get them within any chance of winning a game here.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, now's your chance. If for players like that, you've now got the chance to grab the spotlight. So make the most of it. And if you can try and fill that gap and get some scores on the board, then they might be able to, you know, last a little bit longer and wait for the right person to slot in.
Defensively, I don't know who's going to bring those numbers on the glass, though. We know Alex Bunton's still there and she's been around. You know, she's the veteran in this squad, but she can't do it all herself.
No, no. And unfortunately, at the moment, that's kind of where it's looking for the short term. I have high hopes that Kristen Veal will be able to, you know, make the right changes and the right calls. She's very good at what she does, has incredible basketball knowledge. So, you know, I think we might see maybe a few pieces on the board, probably switched around a little bit this week. And whilst I don't think they're probably going to get a win, we might just have some positives to take out of the games.
I really do hope so. I think they'll probably be thankful they're only playing one game this week. This is against the Lightning on Wednesday night. They've followed it up with a game against the Flames the round after, which I think at this point I'd probably back in the Flames to win it. I don't know if that's any sort of solace for the Capitals, but they've got to really get something moving over the next few weeks before, like I said, either they find their import or they get that improvement from within the squad. Something's got to drop for them because this season's going to get out of hand for them very, very quickly if it doesn't. Looking forward to round 4, Kristen. This week is Fighting Period Poverty Round, a great initiative by the WNBL and something that I haven't really seen across many other women's sporting leagues across the league, across the Australia or internationally even. It seems to be a really good initiative coming into this week.
It is. It's really a great initiative that the league as a whole is undertaking. Obviously, there will be donation points at every game in round 4, and that'll kick off obviously Thursday night with tomorrow night with the Lightning at home. And it's something that I don't think really gets spoken about enough, but it is it's a big problem for women of all ages. And with the shame and the stigma that's around something like that, if we can get enough money for the appeal, for the goal of raising the dignity vending machine, which will provide free period products to women, that would just be a great thing to see.
I obviously can't speak from experience, but the fact that so many countries across the world still face this as such a major issue, it was only a few months ago that they've been talking about it for a long time over in Scotland and making period products free, and they only had that happen in August of this year, which is just amazing that it's taken that long for any country across the world to recognize that this is a real issue. But fantastic initiative by the WNBL to get this underway, and you can donate through, like I said, at all games across the week. They had a campaign across last week as well, where they raised a fair bit of money, but you can still donate as well at sharethedignity.org.au, because I'm sure most people have someone in their lives that would be helped by this initiative. So great to see, and hopefully they get a fair bit of money raised for it across the round. There should be some good attendances this week because there's some cracking games, so they've got a great chance to really get this moving. None better than this top of the table clash here, Kristen. We spoke a little bit about it before, but the Bendigo Spirit and the Townsville Fire, top of the table teams going head to head in what might possibly be one of the games of the year. If there's anything that you could call must-watch basketball, it's this one.
I am extremely excited about this game. Obviously, yep, both are sitting up there undefeated. I think the Fire have probably had the slightly harder draw, obviously coming up against the much improved Flyers and the mixed bag, I guess you'd call Lightning so far. They did have a game against the Caps, but those first 2 games were pretty tough, and they had to fight really hard. So I cannot wait for this one to get under.
Oh, absolutely. This game, like I said, must-watch basketball Friday night as well. So they've got the perfect stage for it up in Townsville. If they don't have half the population of Townsville getting to this game, they've done something wrong. Marketing and advertising, it's going to be so good. I mentioned Nicholson and Hawkins before. They're going to be huge matchups on the defensive end for the Spirit. I guess my question is whether they can find the right matchups there. We know in the paint they've had great work through Kelsey Griffin and Kelly Wilson. They've been pretty strong defensively, I would say, Bendigo. And I mean, pretty strong is probably an underestimate. They have been the best defensive team in the league, only giving up 208 points across 3 games, which is just a 68 or 69 points, something like that per game. They're going to be a hard wall to break, but if anyone can, I think Townsville are very capable.
Yeah, I think Townsville definitely have the as we said before, the intensity to match the Spirit in their offense. We've seen what Kelsey Griffin and Annalee Maley have been able to do. That's another one of those, big duos of the year so far. So I think to see both of those going at it is going to be great as well. I expect to see some really good scores just because they are both really good high scoring teams. So I think it's going to be really exciting.
The matchup that we always look at with the Spirit is Maley. I don't really know what they look to do in this one because we've said it a billion times, but she could play every role on the floor, Maley. So what would you do with this one, Kristen? Do you put someone with her do you have someone, yes, sort of staying with her when she's getting in the paint under the post? Do you have someone that's a bit more athletic to guard her at the perimeter when she gets out to the wing? What do you think is the better option here?
I really don't know because she is just so versatile that she is hard to stop, because if she's not having a good day shooting long, then she'll find her way to the net and get close. I think probably someone athletic is probably your best bet, because that way you can match her pace and you can match her running.
Yeah.
But as we know, even if you shut her down in offense, she'll just step up down the other end. So good luck is probably all I have to say.
My only worry, I think, for the Fire is that you'd probably look at someone like Zatina Akuso when she is in getting in the paint, getting under the post, but obviously she's unavailable through injury. So she's a top rebounder in the comp still, Annalie Maley. So that would be the area, I think, for mine that I'm focusing on, that defensive end. And, she loves to pull down the O boards too. So she's creating plenty from that. It's such a hard matchup. This Bendigo team is absolutely flying at the moment. I don't know. I don't want to give a tip necessarily for this one because I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows who's going to win. But I just see that little edge for Bendigo at the moment here. I don't know what you think, Kristen, but if I had to give a tip, I would go to Spirit.
Yeah, I'd probably go the Spirit. This is going to be the best test that they've had so far, but don't underestimate the hometown advantage up there in Townsville for the Fire.
It's everybody says the hardest road trip in the WNBL. They'll definitely want to make it that way for Bendigo this week. I think regardless, it's going to be a cracker. Make sure you find some way to watch this game Friday night because it will be brilliant. One of the other games is around, I think, maybe one that might fly a little bit under the radar, but Southside and Adelaide coming up against each other again. Kristen, they played at a very, very close game last time at the State Basketball Centre. Southside just getting over the top of them. But this one, for me, I just feel like might be a little bit of a different story. The Lightning are coming off a win, playing at home here. I think they're probably coming in with a little bit more confidence than they would have last time around.
Yeah, I think that game against the Flames for the Lightning, although it was a big win, there was that element of, the Flames catching up and the Lightning holding for 4 quarters, which was something that we were sort of not seeing beforehand. So they
Yeah.
weren't quite, getting that full consistent 4 quarters. And that's sort of where they dropped off against the Flyers last time. So having that confidence, I think, behind them of putting together a full 4 quarter performance will definitely take them in a good regard coming into that game. And also, like back on home court, we're probably going to see a different outcome.
Yeah, I really think I'm high on what they can do in this one. And we spoke about the offensive rotation before. The Flyers just got a little bit embarrassed defensively by the Fire in their last game, which they're going to want to make up for here. But it's going to be an interesting matchup, especially with the big news out of the week as well, Kristen, that Mon Conti is back into the WNBL, which just adds a little bit extra to that guard rotation for Southside. I'm a huge fan of that group now with Amy Roche, Maddie Roche, Bet Cole, and now Mon Conti in there.
Yeah, that's there's some pretty formidable names in that group there, and it's definitely going to keep the defense for the Lightning pretty busy. And I mean, how can you not get excited about seeing Mon Conti back on the basketball court? I think that's great for basketball as a whole. So I'm really keen to see her back in action.
Yeah, a bit more championship experience coming back into that group as well. She was there when they won that their chip in the hub a few years ago, which seems like a lifetime ago now, but just a little bit extra for that group, which is already looking strong. Could be that thing that maybe just tips them over the edge a little bit here, Southside. I think just having her off the bench, while she was never really a true star, outstanding player of the competition, she's a very, very formidable guard in her own right. And I think we'll see her running the floor at points across this game, especially when they've got a huge matchup with Maddie Roach, I think, will be spending a fair bit of time putting attention into Lauren Mansfield. Like I said, she did a great job getting on Chrissy Wallace's nerves when they met the Boomers. So I think she'll be doing something very, very similar in this one. Just put her off her game a little bit, given she's had a huge game last round. The other game of the round, Sydney Flames, we talked about them a bit in this one, Kristen, but they get their first opportunity to show up on home court on Sunday. They might not be in for a win necessarily. I think when you look at any game against the Spirit, you're probably not expecting to tick off a win, especially not the way they're playing at the moment. But do you think that helps a little bit confidence-wise for them getting to play in front of a home crowd?
Yeah, I think, they've had that really tough road trip to start the season. So, don't underestimate, sleeping in your own bed, starting on your own home court. And also it's a double header, I think, with the Kings playing after. So there'll be a really good crowd to spur them on, and hopefully that gets some confidence in them just to start the game.
Yeah, I think I've said it, a bit maybe informally, but the Kings front office and the owners of these two teams have really impressed me in terms of the way that they've, more than anyone, obviously across the league, there's not many teams that do own both the men's and women's teams, and we don't see quite as much of it with the Lynx and the Wildcats, but the links that these two teams seem to have are probably better than many other, if any other teams that have both men's and women's sides across the not just basketball, but any league as a whole in Australia, Chris. And I really like what they do when it comes to linking these two together.
Same here. Yeah, really, really. I just love seeing it. If you look at on social media, the teams are always, working together or doing things in the community together, and I think that's a really good point too. With pretty much, well, now every men's AFL team and AFLW team is in the competition, and I certainly don't see things happening the same way as what they're doing down there in Sydney, and it can really only benefit both sides, I think. So yeah, get around the girls on Sunday if you're going to the game.
Absolutely. I'm sure they've got some sort of special deal that they always seem to do with membership packs or tickets for both. So if you're in Sydney, this will be a good game and hopefully get that little bit of a push for the Flames to get their first win because I think they're showing the right signs. They just need to make that next step to get a victory. Well, that's all for the round 3/round 4 edition of the WNBL Weekly Wrap. Kristen, thank you for joining me as always. Cannot wait for a huge week of hoops.
Thanks for having me yet again, and I'm the same. Let's hope for some big scores again.
Yeah, stay tuned for all the round 4 action. We'll wrap it all up next week once again on the Inner Sanctum YouTube channel.